Africa is a continent blessed with a wealth of assets, from human capital to vital minerals to agricultural and water resources, just to name but a few. However, according to Illumis Foundation research, an estimate of 600 million Africans are without access to electricity, a basic necessity of life. An average African middle-class family with a net monthly income of $500 spends approximately $180 per month in electric bills and diesel as an alternative during frequent power outages. And these numbers are calculated before Russia's invasion of Ukraine. When we look at an American family, earning a net income of $5,000 a month, they spend an average of $350 a month on their power bill. This drastic disparity in the allocation of resources leaves little room for other necessities like food, healthcare, and education. This week on Our Voices, we are taking an in-depth look at how African countries are utilizing their resources, particularly solar power, to power their nations. Hello, I'm Amina Aliu and welcome to Our Voices. According to the most recent United Nations estimate, Africa has a population of approximately 1.4 billion people, more than half of which has inadequate access to electricity. In this digital age, electricity is necessary for many daily activities. On today's program, we'll take a look at how African countries are utilizing their proximity to the equator when it comes to generating solar power. Proponents of solar energy say it is a natural fit for sun-drenched southern Africa, but there's a problem. There are not enough panels to meet soaring demands for solar power. VOA's Anita Powell looks at one company spinning sunshine into energy.
Sunshine is a constant in South Africa. This, its fans say, could help the country decrease its dependence on polluting forms of energy, especially coal. Solar panel technician Bongani Moyo hails from South Africa's Mpumalanga province. The name in isiZulu means place of the rising sun. Solar power, he says, just makes sense to him.
It's a very good job because at most of times it makes me understand that we really need solar at South Africa. Then solar really helps a lot because there's a lot of load shedding in our country and we need solar.
Energy officials in the country have long advocated a mix of electricity sources, including coal, hydropower, nuclear, wind, and solar power. Solix South Africa is one of the many upstarts that has found success installing solar panels on homes and businesses. The small company employs several dozen people, and managing director Ryan Snoek-Henkemans says he would love to hire more if only he could import more panels from China to meet growing demand.
There is a huge uptake in South Africa in the solar industry, in employment. It's especially in the commercial industry that, as I mentioned, our grid is quite unstable. The likes of Solar Africa, Solic, we employ quite a few employees. There's not even enough solar panels in South Africa for the amount of installs we want to install in this country at the present moment.
He's seen a huge increase in demand, from 1,000 installation requests a month last year to about 25,000 a month now. Most customers, he said, see a 50% reduction in their electric bills. Solar sales manager J.D. Kalitz originally came from the wind turbine sector. He says with South Africa's unstable power grid, solar-powered homes and factories can actually sell energy back to the grid.
I do believe that renewables are the future. I do believe that, especially in South Africa, with the unemployment rate being the way it is, it actually creates a lot of green-collar jobs. Which actually benefits a lot of guys, especially the underprivileged, especially if they go into this renewables and they go into the industry.
Moyo is one such story. He started on the job in 2016 with no experience.
The energy that we use from the sun is very important and it's very good and it's healthy, in fact. So that's why I decided to do this job because I learn a lot about energy and I go around and it's nice for me for helping people there. And I enjoy this job and I love the job.
The 33-year-old says he wants to grow old doing this job because, he says, the sun will still rise tomorrow. Anita Powell, VOA News, Johannesburg.
In Kenya, scientists are testing a project using solar panels to shade crops while generating clean energy. It's called agrivoltaics, or the simultaneous use of areas of land for both solar photovoltaic power generation and agriculture. Successful trials have shown that this technology reduces water loss and results in higher yields. Juma Majanga has more from Kajiado, Kenya.
Under Kenya's scorching sun and clear skies, about 60 kilometers south of Nairobi, Ann Watkins, a local farmer in Kajiado County, is learning a new technology called agrivoltaic.
The white flies are also mingi sana.
The technique involves using solar panels to shade crops, harvest rainwater, and generate clean energy.
This is a new technology which saves on so much, and with the climate change, and especially with the solar production, I think with the solar it's free. We have to maximize to save again on climate change, and basically to save on costs, especially in those arid and semi-arid areas.
The agrivoltaic system has been used successfully in Western countries like the United States and Germany, but this is the first such project in Africa. Year-long research with scientists from the University of Sheffield in the United Kingdom, World Agroforestry and Kajiado-based Latia Agropreneurship Institute has yielded positive results for the project dubbed Harvesting the Sun Twice.
We had two plots. We have the control plot that is grown under the normal conditions. And what we were able to know is that after the analysis, we were able to get that the crops that were grown under the panels performed better. That is in terms of the quantity and the quality.
According to World Bank data, more than half of Africa's population did not have access to electricity by 2019. Agrivoltaic technology combines land dedicated to solar panels with land dedicated to agriculture to improve food security and grid connectivity.
Over the last 15 years, over the last 20 to 30 years, all the players that have been in the agriculture ecosystem, we have put the foundations for why agribusiness is viable for the continent. Most of the technologies that we are talking about, we know which technologies have a chance of success on the continent. What really now needs to be done is to connect the dots.
After the successful rollout in Kenya, another trial is being set up in the neighboring Tanzania, the aim being to spread the technology across the continent. But farmers like Ann Watkins say they need help.
Being a capital-intensive project, the government maybe can put up policies in place when it comes to funding, maybe providing cheaper loans to farmers, and maybe organizing farmers into cooperatives, which may end up being a community project as a cooperative.
While adaptation of climate-smart technologies like agrivoltaic offers hope to farmers in the face of a changing climate, the challenge remains in the rollout to farmers in rural Africa who need such technologies the most. Juma Majanga for VOA News, Kajiado, Kenya.
A South African company that promotes solar power and uses crowdsourcing to raise capital in financing a solar-powered farm in Zimbabwe that is also benefiting neighboring farmers. The Sun Exchange raised $1.4 million for the farm. Columbus Mavunga reports from Marondera, Zimbabwe.
The solar-powered farm is about 80 kilometers east of Harare. Owned by Nimbe Fresh Exports, it grows crops such as blueberries and peas for export to Europe and Australia. Faced with problems such as power cuts and the need for sustainable farming and reducing carbon emissions, the farm turned to clean energy, says the head of Nimbe Fresh Exports.
So therefore there was need for us to relook and rethink in terms of how best we can farm without harming the environment. Solar obviously became as one option, seeing that we live in Africa where there's lots of sun.
What is happening at this farm is also taking place elsewhere in Africa, according to the Sun Exchange, which says it has enabled at least 60 farmers on the continent to install solar panels through its crowdsourcing methods. The South African company says it raised $1.4 million from almost 2,000 people around the world to fund the solar project in Zimbabwe.
We certainly hope to follow suit with more standout Zimbabwean businesses like Nimbe Fresh, who want to lead the landscape in sustainability and who understand the importance of accessing reliable, affordable, clean energy to scale and expand their operations.
Among the farmers who are benefiting from power generated by the Nimbe project is blueberries farmer Simba Chitida. He too exports the crop.
It leaves me with some disposable income on my side to be able to look after my family. And also, you know, those big power cuts, we are not affected anymore. We continuously managing to irrigate our crop.
For years now, Zimbabwe has experienced long power cuts because of struggles to raise funds to import energy from neighboring countries. Nimbe Fresh Exports wants to expand its solar power to 1.9 megawatts to bring more farmers on board and expand their operations as well. Columbus Mavunga for VOA News, Marondera, Zimbabwe.
It's time for a break, but first, we asked South Africans about their nation's frequent power outages in our Your Voice segment. When we return, my co-hosts and I will discuss the future of solar power in Africa. Stay with us.
It's actually become quite a big problem, especially from a business point of view. Obviously power goes down, everything goes down, and then you have to start again. There's obviously certain things in a restaurant, you can't run anything three-phase off a generator for the space that we have. So it affects business in a big way. We are fortunate enough to be a business with a generator, so it does take the bite out of it, but yeah, it becomes a pain.
What can I say? It's really frustrating, you know. I mean, I know in high school throughout to university, it kind of could interrupt me studying, and then you end up like doing stuff that you don't need to do because like now you're trying to pass time. I will say now it's just like, you know, traffic is a problem and at home security is an issue. So when there's load shedding, it's like that's when the criminals come out to play.
Empowerment and humanity towards a better world.
Economic and social progress of every society.
Facts and information from key players rather than spectators in politics, business, science and technology.
City, rural, educated or underprivileged. We care and we listen to what matters to you.
Your voices are our voices.
Welcome back. You're watching Our Voices. Somalia lacks a national power grid and relies on imported fuel, wood and charcoal to address its energy needs. But energy experts say that with the longest coastline on mainland Africa and an average of 10 hours of sunshine per day, Somalia has great potential for onshore wind and solar power.
Somalia's private power companies rely on imported diesel to meet demand, making Mogadishu power cost more than 3 times the price of the global average. But they hope to transition to renewable energy. Abdulaziz Ilaika, electric engineer, Blue Sky Power.
The challenge for the sector is that solar power is relatively new and there is a lack of investment. We have the skills and the technology is readily available, but we lack needed investments to tap onshore and hydropower to make use of these abundant resources. But I am sure we will soon be able to tap these resources.
To help jumpstart renewables, a group of private companies this year formed the Somalia Green Energy Association, SOGEA. The founder of clean energy company Dalsam Power, Bashir Sofe, is SOGEA's chairman.
We face various obstacles, such as lack of incentives and investments from both the government and international community. But if we get the necessary investment and funding, particularly if banks can open their doors to support the renewable energy sector, then Somalia can become a hub for renewable energy and rise economically.
Somalia's Ministry of Planning, Investment and Economic Development says it is pushing renewable energy under the Somalia Investment Promotion Office, Some Invest. Mohamed Dubo, Director, Some Invest.
As you are aware, Somalia is endowed with vast natural resources by God's will. Among the renewable energy resources include wind and solar energy. Our wind speeds are quite high, even the fastest in the world, and these can generate substantial electricity. Similarly, we have long periods of sunshine, and we have potential to even sell power to our neighbors.
A 2018 African Development Bank study noticed Somalia has the highest potential of any African nation for onshore wind power, if it can only harness the wind. Samatar Mohammed, Economics Lecturer, Mogadishu University.
Somalia is not exporting renewable energy. Maybe it is because the country lacks experience. If we can take advantage of our abundant renewable energy, the price of a kilowatt hour would not be as expensive as it is. The utility rate would be cheap, and everyone would be able to afford electricity.
As the world moves to clean energy, Somalia's energy industry hopes to move with it and find its place in the sun. Mohamed Shaghnour for VOA News, Mogadishu, Somalia.
Joining us now to discuss Africa's solar potential is Habiba Ahut Dagash. She's an associate with the Nigerian-based Africa Energy Program, and she supports RMI's efficient demand stimulation efforts in Nigeria through encouraging productive use of energy to enable local economic development. RMI is a non-partisan, non-profit organization that works to transform global energy systems across the real economy.
So essentially, solar energy is using some of the energy or the irradiation coming from the sun, converting that into electricity or heat, and using that to power any domestic, commercial, or industrial uses on Earth. So in terms of how that conversion happens, there's so many different technologies, but principally they use solar panels, solar modules that have certain metals or chemicals that are able to convert some of that irradiation into electrons, which when they flow through a wire, that's electricity. So in terms of how the technology works is we're just converting irradiation into electricity, mostly, but occasionally into heat as well. In terms of how solar power is stored, so primarily, at least within the electricity sector, which is where solar energy is mostly deployed currently, we use batteries to store some of that solar. So lithium-ion batteries are able to take excess solar energy and store that. However, there's other means of being able to store energy. You can use electricity available to pump up water, for example, and then when there's a need for that energy, pump the water back down in a hydroelectric dam.
So Habiba, you work on finding clean energy solutions in order to mitigate climate change. And as you just briefly explained, solar panels are one of the solutions that help us prevent burning greenhouse gases. But can solar energy power a nation alone, or does it have to be complemented with other power sources like hydropower or coal? How does that work?
So I think there's two answers to that question. The short answer is no. So you can't use solar power to power a nation alone, primarily because it's only available during the daytime. So during nighttime or during periods where you have a lot of cloud cover, you can't really generate a lot of energy or electricity from some of the solar panels. An alternative is to have other forms of electricity generation that you can use at nighttime. So this could be either fossil fuel means of generation, so coal, natural gas, even oil, or you could have cleaner forms of energy, nuclear power, hydroelectric power that are also available at nighttime.
Just to also jump into this conversation, the use of solar power is just so expansive now. You find it basically in homes, in businesses, but is there a place where it's most beneficial? Is it mostly for the industrial purposes or for residential? And is there competition between those entities?
Yeah, so in terms of really where you can use solar power, if you're being supplied by grid infrastructure, for example, then the national grid serves both domestic, commercial, and industrial consumers. So building solar infrastructure to provide electricity into a national grid can really supply anybody that's connected to that grid infrastructure. I think where solar offers a lot of opportunity is for off-grid settings. So particularly in developing countries, such as most of the countries in sub-Saharan Africa, where there's a lot of rural communities and they're typically very large, very geographically spread rural communities, it can be very expensive to extend transmission lines and the grid infrastructure into every single village. Right. So in those instances, solar lends itself to being a technology that you can decentralize quite easily. Of course, the sun is available everywhere. You can build out smaller units of solar panels, build out a small distribution network, and then supply an isolated community. So I think that's where, within sub-Saharan Africa where I work, that's where solar has seen the most success as opposed to being connected to the grid. It's because it's able to fulfill that purpose of providing energy where other forms of energy, that fossil fuel generation or the grid can't really, it's not economically viable to extend them to.
When you look at a country like Nigeria, where the power grid has failed multiple times in the last few months, and the country is heavily dependent on diesel fuel, petrol for generators, don't you think does that affect the oil and gas industry? And what role can government play in making sure that solar power is complemented by other forms of power in a way that benefits the country?
Yeah, so in terms of competition and disruption, Nigeria is a really interesting context of how, a really interesting, I think, case study of how the prospects of solar have improved because of some of the volatility we're seeing in some of the oil and gas markets. So since COVID and the Ukrainian conflict, that there's been a disruption in the oil markets, and we see oil has been priced consistently at over $100 a barrel. And in Nigeria, diesel prices have tripled, for example. So from a consumer standpoint, actually solar is now by far the cheapest option as a source of electricity for your home or for your business. The issue is that there are other barriers that are preventing that adoption. So we're still seeing significant diesel and petrol generator use in the country.
It's time for a break. But first, how frequently do you experience power outages in your localities? What is the solution? Is solar energy an alternative solution? Please share your views on our social media platforms. We are on Facebook at VOA Africa and Instagram and Twitter at VOA Our Voices. We are also on WhatsApp. Our number is on your screen. When we come back, we will introduce you to a group of women in our Women to Watch segment who are using solar power to enable young women to become independent and environmentally friendly in their businesses. Welcome back. I'm Amina Eliu and you're watching Our Voices. It's time for our Women to Watch segment. Nigeria's poor power infrastructure means nearly half of mostly women-run households must rely on high-polluting generators. A women-led group called Solar Sisters is empowering African women and girls with cleaner, solar power and providing financial independence. Timothy Obiezu has more.
Business owner Esther Ayeni demonstrates her solar products to women in Nigeria, where many households do not have reliable power. Her products come from a non-profit group called Solar Sister, which helps women like Ayeni run a profitable clean energy business and gives customers access to renewable energy. Ayeni once used kerosene lamps and dry cell batteries to light up her home and shop. Now she uses solar power and sells her products to customers in Abuja and other communities.
I take my products to women, even more remote areas. They pay me for the products in installments until they are completely paid for. It is helping them. Every one of them is enjoying the light.
Today, Solar Sister says it has about 2,000 women entrepreneurs working in local communities in 27 out of Nigeria's 36 states.
I mean, it's been 8 years of starting an innovation, trying to see how gender and energy are interlinked, and how we can reap the benefits of women being at the forefront of this clean energy transition.
Aishatu Ndanusa joined last year with only $80. She says her business is now worth about $3,000.
It's helping us a lot. It has changed a lot in our life, even my children, my husband, and me. A lot has changed in my family, honestly speaking.
Nearly half of Africa's population is facing an acute energy shortage, according to the International Energy Agency, or IEA. The IEA says that Nigeria, the Democratic Republic of Congo, and Ethiopia are the African countries most affected by energy poverty, and that women bear the burden. Russia's invasion of Ukraine in February made the problem even worse as energy and commodity prices soared in communities already hard hit by the COVID-19 pandemic. Energy expert Odion Omonfoman says authorities are working to ease the problem.
A lot of investments are going into all the sectors, but like I said, it's not something that will be instantaneous. These are years and decades of non-investment, poor government policies, and the world was coming from a lockdown situation where oil prices went negative.
The IEA says Africa could get universal access to electricity by 2030 by investing $25 billion annually in all parts of the energy system, but especially clean energy. But in the meantime, Solar Sister entrepreneurs will be reaching out to more women. Timothy Obiezu for VOA News, Abuja, Nigeria.
And that's our show for this week. On behalf of my Our Voices colleagues and everyone here at the Voice of America, I'm Amina Aliyu. Until next time, goodbye.